fans of a Horus Heresy, a bountiful year of new models, and looking forward to what's coming next. Thank you very much for joining us for episode 4 of Legion of Cheese. And we are joined once again by our co-host, Jay. How are we doing, Jay?
I'm doing well. Leaky, how's yourself? Did you have a good Christmas?
I did, yes. I had a good Christmas, thank you, yes. My Christmas this year was better than last, mainly on account of the fact I wasn't in bed with influenza. So it didn't really have to deliver on much to be a step up on last year. So yes, it was good. How about you?
Yeah, no, it was very, very good. Nice, good times with friends and family, and an unbelievable amount of toys.
Oh, did you get... Well, I'm going to ask you what you got first, because we all know what my hobby-themed present was and how and the badge of shame I have about it. So we're going to do yours first, aren't we? So what toys did you get? What hobby toys did you get?
Let's see. Between the wife and my friends and family, I got 40 Mark IIIs, 20 Mark VI, all new gen, 30 Assault Marines, 40 World Eater heads, 40 World Eater shoulder pads, 2 World Eater dreadnoughts, and Angron.
Wow, that is quite a haul. Is that like a full company's worth?
Almost. Now, it's not all for the World Eaters. Some of them are going to go into the Black Shields and the like, but about 40, maybe 50 of them are going to go into the World Eaters for the 1K and 2K lists, yeah.
Oh, very nice, yeah. Oh, that's an impressive haul, that, and Angron as well. Fantastic model. Yeah. Am I right in thinking Angron was the first of the Primarch miniatures to be released?
He was, yes. He was the first one that was released back when Book 1 came out, and then if I remember correctly, he came out, and then it was Abaddon and Loken.
Ah, yes. Sounds about right.
Yeah, or it might have been the other way around, but I'm pretty sure Angron was first, because he was like the cover art, wasn't he? He was like the literal poster boy for Heresy Book 1. You know, the picture of the model, but the down angle, and then they've got the CG sort of background, you know, of him running through the remains of Istvan 3.
Yes, he was, yeah. I think he was the first one, yeah, even before Horus and Fulgrim.
Yeah, Fulgrim, I believe, was second, and then we had Ferris, because they were do you remember they did that nice diorama base for them too, for Book 2?
Yes.
Yeah, because that was sort of like the running thing, wasn't it? Because Magnus and Lehman got one as well, I believe. And then Sanguinius got one of them, as usual, slaying demons.
Well, as one does when you are the angel. Yeah, that's very nice. That's a great holdout. Yeah. So I got one hobby themed or heresy themed. Well, don't know. It's very tenuous to call it a heresy themed present from my kids, the Cheezers, and they decided I needed a Warhammer 40,000 themed Christmas jumper.
Yes, I've seen the pictures.
You've seen the photos, and now the dear viewers get to see my suffering, because not only did they buy me a Christmas jumper for Warhammer 40,000, they decided I needed an Ultramarines one. So yes, so I was kind of felt both betrayed and warm all at the same time.
They couldn't even stoop to get you a word bearer's one to match your Legion.
No, I know, it's terrible. Does this mean I have to do some Ultramarines at some point? I don't know if I could do that. I mean, how would I do some traitor ones? Or maybe, I suppose I could do the 22nd chapter, the slightly crazy ones. That might work.
Yeah, that would work, yeah.
And yes, well, and I hope all the viewers have had a great Christmas as well, or if you celebrate, or a good holiday break for the winter period, the winter holiday period. Now, of course, it's New Year, isn't it? And touch wood, if everything has worked, the Vox signal is good, and the cogitators function correctly, this will be New Year's Day, won't it? So I suppose we need to say Happy New Year.
Indeed, Happy New Year to everybody. We've got 2024 to look forward to, and we've already seen the teaser of what's coming in silhouette form, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out what it is. No. So we've got some nice new things to look forward to.
And that's what we're going to talk about today, isn't it? We're going to spend a little bit of time musing about what we think could be coming for the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness game this year. We've written a couple of lists over the last few weeks, haven't we? And there was a point at which, was it about 3-4 weeks ago, where it felt like Forge World had stolen our list and it was starting to release stuff off it.
Yeah, when we finished episode 3, we started thinking about episode 4. And one of your subscribers had the idea of predictions, and we decided that's quite a lovely concept. And we wrote a list, and then within the span of 3 weeks, there was things already taken off it.
Yeah.
We decided to maybe get ready to record, and then the apothecaries got shown off.
They did, yes.
And then we decided to try again, and the teaser came out.
And it did, yes. Time caught up with us a bit. And actual real-world releases, and of course, yes, we had the 2 medics, or 2 apothecaries previewed.
They're beautiful.
They're very nice. There's one guy in Mark 5 armour, one in Mark 6, and the guy in Mark 5 is the first Mark 5 model we've had since a long time ago.
Yeah, not counting the Alpha Legion console character who appears to have a Mark 5 leg set. Everything above that is something completely different. But there is a sort of correlation, and we can talk about that in a different episode, but we're beginning to see the pattern of, the best way to describe it is the shape of things to come.
Indeed, yes. The Mark 5 shape of things to come. So they got released, and there were a couple of Psychers as well, who were also on our list who've been released. So those came along. But I think now we're at a point where we can have a discussion without it being made out of date over the course of the next 2 or 3 days. So we're going for it, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
Shall we just have a quick touch on the 2024 What's Coming trailer, which really was like a bad 2023 rewind type video with just a tiny little bit of what's 2024, wasn't it?
Yeah. They really tried their best to pad out that 1 minute or 30 seconds, whatever it was, but it equated to, if we take 30 seconds as the example, it equated to 27 seconds of everything we've seen in the past year and 3 quick flashes of what we now know is coming.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And within the span, I think, of about 2 hours, somebody had put it into Photoshop and increased the brightness.
They had. And they did that with the Legion Vexler, wasn't it? The Marine.
Yes, they did it. Yeah, they did it with the Standard Bearer. I think someone had also done it with the Solar Aux guy with the las gun, and he has the wee standard on his back as well.
Yeah. And then after seeing that, it's like, ha ha ha. So I had to go with the Walker, the Solar Auxilia Walker, and revealed some details. So not quite as silhouette-y as they'd hoped.
There's always a way, even if they tried their best to silhouette the life out of that, someone with a decent, real good knowledge of Photoshop, for example, will find a way to mess with it.
Yeah,
there's always a way.
Extract the lighting detail, basically, because if you've got some sort of lighting, basically in the background, then there's light, however small, falling on the surfaces of the model, isn't it? And that can be digitally messed around with. So, yeah. I suppose, really, the reveals, there was nothing that really, other than the interest of what you could see in detail, there was nothing like that you couldn't have figured out from the silhouette, was there?
No, it's not exactly, well, given the fact that they showed a Marine holding a standard and then a human with a las gun, you can obviously extrapolate that it's a Solar Aux and a Marine. Now, if it had been 3 Mechanicum type units that all look like some sort of, to be honest with you, I'm not really sure, but I'm sure there's enough Mechanicum units that sort of look alike if they're in silhouette form. And in my head, that might have been an interesting one for them to try and pull, 3 different silhouettes, and people might think it's the same silhouette from 3 angles, but in truth, it's 3 different units. I'm not too sure,
That would have been a big surprise, but I think, as we predicted in our, was it Legion of Cheese 2? Where
it
we
was,
talked about
Mystery Army.
The Mystery Army. I think the head's money, let's say, as opposed to our heart's money, the head's money was on the Solar Auxilia as being the Mystery Plastic Army, and that's more or less been confirmed for sure now, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it's going to be really good to see. It is something now, personally, Solar Aux are not my forte, but the more Heresy releases, the better. Because it shows that there's still a bit of life left in the game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's loads of life. There's an awful lot. They've only really scratched the surface in terms of the possibilities of a plastic range, haven't they? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Now, they're taking their sweet time. Now, I know it's a long-form project. I know that this is a game, obviously, that will last for many, many years, and they have to stagger the releases for many, many years. But if I'm allowed to be selfish, I want more Heresy more often, and I want more plastics now.
and more Infantry, because obviously
Please, yes.
someone at Games Workshop HQ slipped and pressed to release all the vehicles button last year, didn't they?
Anybody who wanted a tank company or a dreadnought company, they were laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
for myself, I personally am a fan of infantry over armor or even dreadnoughts sometimes. So there's only so much kit bashing you can do with a Mark 6.
Yeah.
And as much as I try to make every man look unique, I was starting to run out of ideas. So the introduction of the Mark 3 and even the Mark 6, it does open up a lot. And now that we know, for example, the command squad is coming, now that's in Mark 3. And before we continue, I do want to tell everybody that, do you remember we had that chat, Leaky, about my brother-in-law's theory about what it might be?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a good theory.
Yeah, so I'll say this now so that if it does happen, it's vindication and I can write "I told you so" on Twitter. He is under the impression that the command squad is an upgrade sprue. We're not actually going to get a Mark III command squad. We're going to get a 2250 or £25 box upgrade sprue. And it's just going to be a series of arms and alternate heads and maybe even plastic heraldry that you would glue to the front of torsos, so that dependent on what mark of armor you use in the future, they'll all match. Because it wouldn't make economical sense for them to release a Mark III command squad when they've pushed Mark 6 so heavily. And we've already technically seen what the Mark 6 command squad looks like because of Legions Imperialis. So he's under the impression it's a upgrade sprue, and to be honest with you, I'd actually be quite happy with that. Yes, it's not technically new miniatures, but with an upgrade sprue, the Assault Marines, the Mark III, and the generic Mark 6s, and if we're lucky, some of the things we talk about in these predictions for the future, you've got an unbelievable amount to work with.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good shout, that, because when you think about the basic idea, so instead of having a command squad set, which would obviously have to be specific to an armor mark in some way, create an upgrade sprue. So just as the tactical squad has its accessory sprue, the assault squad has its jetpack sprue, or jump pack sprue, I should say. Why not do the same thing for the command squad? And then they can... I'm not sure how we'll play this in terms of the product offering. Given what GW's like, I have a feeling they'll offer both a Mark III and a Mark VI command squad, which will be a tactical sprue plus one or more command sprues, however many sprues a command squad goes across. It'll make 5 models, which will basically be like a Vexilla and a couple of champions or something like that, and maybe an officer like a Centurion. And they might even throw an apothecary in, although it's technically form part of the command squad.
That would be cool to see, because while the Forge World Mark V and Mark VI apothecaries are beautiful, plastic is always better.
It's certainly more affordable, isn't it? And
yeah,
a lot of armies want to take advantage of the way the elite slot work in Age of Darkness, where a single choice gets you up to 8 tech marines, we're coming to those, 8 apothecaries that you can attach to any of your standard armoured marine squads. At the moment, I mean, that apothecary set with a Mark V and a Mark VI, that's going to be lovely. It's going to be a really nice set. I hope they price it reasonably so it's affordable.
I'm thinking 22 or 27.50.
What, for
the two of them? Yeah. I don't think they'll do them individually. The last set they did was a set of 2. I think this time it will be a set of 2.
In the article, it says it's a set of 2. I think it might be more like 35. So we'll see. We'll have to see how it comes out with that. Yeah. But I think ultimately we want plastic apothecaries, because a lot of armies need quite a few of them.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, just go back to what I was saying about the command squad. And then it's following this sort of modular kit approach, which is the way that the new range is starting to take shape, isn't it? So we had the heavy weapon sets, we had the tactical support sets. Although you can only currently buy a Mark VI assault squad, the jump pack sprue isn't Mark VI specific.
No, it is quite generic, because they're just classing it now as the Warhawk jump pack, and
Yeah.
I've already dry fitted it to a couple of Mark IIIs, and it looks fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, granted that they look a bit strange. Obviously, they're both. That idea I went for was they've just landed, so they've got both feet planted on the ground. Rather than the standard look of an assault marine is always 1 foot in the air, 1 foot getting ready to take off.
Or more on
But
the move. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I think that's a good shout. So I think they'll offer them as a full kit, but I think there's every possibility, given what they did with the Contemptor and the Leviathan kits, where they offered the weapon sprues separately, that they'll do the same thing for a command sprue, given the number of tactical squads, Mark III, Mark VI, they've sold, which must be right now, it must be loads. I heard that the Age of Darkness box set outsold AOS Dominion, so it's been so it's been a big success for them, and there's a lot of models out there waiting for upgrades.
It was, well, I have to admit, that was a very good box set, to start off.
It is. It still is. Yeah, it's a one for the ages. That is. So
thankfully, I don't need any more. I bought 7 when they came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bought 2 and I thought that was a lot, but 7, gosh, you made me feel like a little garrison on a backwater planet now.
What it was about it, I just decided, you know what? I want to make sure that I have enough Spartans and at that point in time, enough Dreadnoughts and enough Mark 6s to do 2 armies at once. Because I was going to do 2 armies. I was going to do the Black Shields and somebody else. But I didn't actually know who it was. I hadn't actually picked the world leaders yet. So I bought them all, and then obviously sold 6 of the rule books, 6 of the templates, and just, or give them away to friends and stuff. And I think I've still got like 130 Mark 6s out the back somewhere.
Fair play. And why not? I think it's something that's a great thing to have in your stash. They're never going to age. They're always going to be good models of those. And as time goes on, there's only going to be more and more components available for them. So that was one thing, wasn't it? The command squad peep. But then the main thing really is going to be the Solar Auxilia army in plastic. So we've seen a guy with a las rifle, so that says plastic las rifle infantry. And we've also seen this new walker, which it's like a sentinel walker, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's cut down. I said to someone on one of the social media platforms that I thought it looked like the AT, I think, is it RT?
Yeah, the all-terrain recon transport from the Clone Wars.
Yes, and I thought it looked a lot like that, which is quite a cool design, and it definitely suits the look of the Solar Auxilia. So that's a new unit, that is.
Yeah. Do you think it's a dual kit? I haven't actually discussed this with you, but I had a bit of a thought. Do you think they'll treat it like the classic Sentinel, where there's the armored and the non-armored version, and the armored version is the one we've seen in Legions Imperialis?
Oh, that's a really interesting thought, that is. I need to now get a photo of those little walkers because, that's a really good point, because could they do it in 2 ways? Can you remember what we call it? The Solar Auxilia Heavy Walker.
It was something. Do you remember? I remember we talked about it. It was called like the Atreus or the Arturus or something. It was ATH something.
Yeah.
Something.
Yes, you were very close. Yes, I found it now, thanks to the incredible edible internet. Legions Imperialis. It's the Etheon Heavy Sentinel.
Yes. Well, there you go. It's classed as a heavy Sentinel, so it's essentially hopefully an armored variant, maybe.
Yeah. So it looks. Looking at this, I think it's probably got its own set of legs.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually pretty chunky legs. Yeah, so I think that will be a separate kit. I really hope they've done a plastic model of this for the Heresy army, because every army needs its Walker class unit.
Yeah.
Because of the way the game works now, Walker units are really important in terms of like the sort of survivability, firepower niche they fill. So the Legions have got the Dreadnoughts. The Mechanicum has got the robot hordes. Can't really count the militia because it's not a proper list. They sort of have the Ogryns, but the Ogryns really are more like Terminators in terms of their capabilities.
Yeah.
They're like elite melee infantry. But I think the Solar Auxilia army is really going to need a unit like this. So I hope they do that as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I might be wrong on the legs, It may be that it's a dual-use one, like you suggest, and you're going to be able to configure them 2 ways. So one is like the scout version, and one is a heavy sentinel, which is more like the battle unit, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, they could use the same legs as the frame, and then dependent on which one you're putting in your list, you would add armor plating.
Yeah, definitely. So a bit more info on this. A number of units have gone out of stock on Games Workshop's website for the Solo Auxilia army. So last time I checked, the las rifle section, the tactical command section, the Velataris storm section were all out of stock, as was one of the Malcador tanks. So that says to me that we're getting the core infantry choices, which is excellent and is essential if it's going to fly as a product. They need to make the infantry cheap. And, the main or the heavy tank option in the Malcador. Now, the Malcador, I think, will be an absolutely incredible plastic kit. It's such a cool design in and of itself. It's a great looking tank. Very sort of World War I / World War II meets sci-fi that 40k does so well, particularly Forge World, but in plastic, so it's not an absolute pain to build.
Yeah.
And also easy to do with its weapon options.
Well, I've actually just got the website up there. So currently, the tactical command, so the command squads sold out. The las rifle section, as you say, is gone. Let's have a look. The Ogrins, though they're just down as temporarily out of stock. The Basilisk stroke Medusa is gone.
Okay, right.
And a few more things have disappeared since then as well. The Marauder is out of stock. The Stormblade's out of stock. The Valdor is out of stock, and so is the Malcador. So yeah, either that could be the last of the run, and they'll eventually go to sold out online, and Forge World won't make any more, and they're coming in plastic, or people have just seen the teasers and are now committing to getting some of the more expensive kits, knowing or assuming that they may or may not be released. So, now, that being said, I wouldn't put it past them, because I never expected in a million years to see a plastic Leviathan in the first year. And we got one.
We did,
there was a lot of things came. I mean, from the tank point of view especially, there was a lot of, and I didn't expect to see half of them in the first year, let alone empty.
It was a veritable banquet of Heresy tanks. It was incredible. I suppose the one that's still in stock but is a key part of the Solo Auxilia list is the Lehman Russ, isn't it? That's like their, roughly speaking, it's equivalent to a Predator, sort of. It's I think Predator or Sicaran, perhaps. Probably something like those two, yeah. They've got the Carnodon tank as well, though. The Carnodon is more, in terms of a unit, it's a bit more like the Sabre tank destroyer or tank hunter. So yeah, there's the Lehman Russ, and the Malcador is the heavy tank. So that is equivalent to, what would that be equivalent to in the Legion list? I mean, Spartan, sort of, but it's not a troop transporter. Yeah, the Marines at the moment, they don't really have an equivalent of the Malcador.
What about the Kratos?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Excuse me, I'll just banish myself from this hobby for not remembering that. Thank you, Jay. The Kratos, yes, that is the Malcador equivalent, yeah. So
one thing I'm genuinely surprised about, though, is the Aurochs. That is still on the website as temporarily out of stock, not sold out. Normally, as we know from Heresy and previous things that has happened, when something gets announced or leaked or shown off, it immediately goes down to sold out online, or they've purged their existing stock. That's just done as temporarily out of stock. Considering that's the Solar Ox glorified Rhino, you would expect that to definitely be a plastic kit eventually, or at least within the first 6 months.
Yeah. Likewise, the Dracosan armoured transport. When they originally designed the Solo Auxilia army, the Dracosan was a core element of it. It was, I suppose, to people who don't know, the Dracosan armoured transport is basically, it's like a heavy transporter. It's built on the Malcador chassis, so I suppose it's a little bit like the Spartan, being like a big transporter. And the idea was it had a transport capacity of 20. So you could transport an entire las rifle section. Yeah. And they would be armed with a las cannon and a multi-laser. So because las rifle troops don't have organic heavy weapons, you would use a Dracosan to give you that, anti-armor punch.
Yeah. I will say one thing. I'm genuinely surprised that, I know this is just my sort of personal interpretation, I'm always surprised that the Imperial Militia or the Solar Ox never included the Gorgon transport. I would have assumed that Forge would have found a way to squeeze that in there somewhere, because that's a very unique kit. We only really see that for the Death Corps in Vrax, and it is quite an ancient-looking piece of gear. So I thought maybe they would try and retroactively say this was used back in the day, But
Okay.
you never know.
That is a really good observation, and I'll tell you why it wasn't in the Solar Auxilia Army. So the Solar Auxilia Army is a proper expeditionary fighting force.
Mm-hmm.
So all their gear has the ability to fight in a vacuum or hostile environments. Yeah.
Yes, and the Gorgon's open top, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yes, I see what you mean now.
So if you look at the Dracosan, it's a fully enclosed transport, as is the Aurochs.
Yeah.
The Gorgon, it's open top, so it leaves the occupants exposed to the elements. So, that's why they're never put in the Solar Auxilia list. However, it did have an entry in the militia list.
Right.
And it still does. In the new PDF militia list, the Gorgon has an entry. So it still lives on. It
is a nice kit. Yeah, no, I'm glad to see that. Never owned one. Never had a Death Corps army.
No,
But it is a nice piece of kit.
It is, yeah, and it was for several years. It was out of production, and then a few years ago, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, they brought it back into production, and it was nice to see it make a return.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a very exciting year for Solar Auxilia fans, and I think it'll be a great thing for the game, as you were saying, because it's a way for people who want to play something other than Marines to have an affordable way to get into Heresy, isn't there?
Yeah, it's going to be an expensive year either way, And by that I don't mean about the prices of GW. I don't mean anything like that. It's just obviously whether you played Solar Aux or you played Marines or maybe played both, like I know you can partake of now and again. If you decided to just want a full plastic force of both, you would be definitely out a few quid.
I would, yeah. Well, fortunately or unfortunately for me, depending how you look at it, I've got a fairly sizable Solar Auxilia army. Certainly sizable in body count. Points-wise, it's not that much, really.
Yeah, I don't know how you own 200 las rifle guys and yet it only equates to 36 points at the 2K list.
I know. It's like, put 60 las rifle guys on and someone puts like 20 Marines on.
Yeah. You don't bring them in the little battle cases. You bring them in suitcases you take on a plane to go to like Spain or Europe or something. You'd be like, and this is just one company. I've got about 3 of them on. This is only a 2K list.
Hello. It's
God,
crazy.
could you imagine playing 5K of Solar Aux pure infantry? Oh my God. Oh, wow.
A lot of moving, yeah. But yeah, I think it's, I think it'll be fun. I mean, the army list, by virtue of all the vehicles, it's okay. There's some bad writing in Liber Imperialis on the Solar Auxilia army that needs some fixing. Just like, obviously, like stuff that's not working quite right with how it's written, and some stuff that's just pointed, and it's just like, I think it's some of the veteran units. You just look at the points cost and you compare them to Marines, and Marines are qualitatively better in just about every regard. And yet
of course they are. They're 7 foot tall, genetically engineered super soldiers.
Absolutely.
Not that I'm biased or anything.
Well, so it does need some work, the list, and I'm hoping they've realised that. There's certainly been plenty of player feedback to let the Age of Darkness development team know that there are balance issues.
Yeah.
With Liber Imperialis, so hopefully they'll fix that as part of the plastic model releases.
Yeah, not to go off on the tangent, not to go off on a tangent of the tangent we're already on, right? But going back to what I said when we did Legion of Cheese number 2, and I talked about how, I mean, think about it, right? Are they actually going to release another book? Because I'm not sure how to feel about that. Because when you think about it like this, right? They released a book last year, or the year before, of the Solar Aux. And yes, while it's filled with issues, I don't know how people would feel, maybe more people who are maybe a bit more salty than we are, or maybe people who maybe are a bit, let's just say, don't have a lot of funds. The idea that, yes, they're finally getting their plastic men, but now they have to drop an additional 30 quid for another black book that just has a few, you know what I mean? I don't know how to feel about that, because personally, I think they should maybe redo it to fix it. But for some people, they might be like, seriously, the book is not that old. You could have just released a PDF with some updates and slotted into the pages or something. I don't, I'm not sure. What's your thoughts on that?
That's a tricky one, that is, yeah. I mean, there's that sort of in the middle fudge, which is release a PDF and reprint the book with fixes.
Yeah.
I think that will be the best of both worlds from a point of view, the gamer experience. As to what they'll actually do. I mean, they could do a PDF. The PDFs they've done so far for the Age of Darkness books have been quite focused.
Yeah.
They've not really dabbled into fixing balance issues that much, apart from some absolute howlers. Yeah. Full Mentaris Marines, you know what I'm on about.
Yeah.
But there's some like obvious things like contempt to dreadnoughts are undercosted. Yeah. That's just like everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But they've not yet tackled it. And the last cannons are too cheap. Everybody knows that, but they've not yet tackled it.
I'm glad they haven't. I'm running 2 dreadnoughts in a 1K, and I'm so glad I can squeeze the pair of them in.
Ooh. Well, as long as your opponent brings 2 as well, it'll be all fine. Or at least 1, yeah?
No, he's bringing 2 Vindicator. He's bringing 2 Vindicator laser destroyers.
Interesting. You'll let me know how that goes. I mean, the Vindicators are cheaper, aren't they?
Yeah, they're 120, I believe, base without upgrades. Now, I think the laser destroyer tacks on a couple of points, but even if he were to run 2 Vindicators against the dreadnoughts, if he got a couple of nice direct hits, they're shredded.
Yeah,
if I get close, he's done because they're World Eater dreadnoughts.
They are, yeah. What are you arming your dreadnoughts with?
Twin Claw, Twin Flamer. They're designed to be anti-infantry or anti-tank. They just run in flame, and if the infantry's dead, I hit a tank.
Actually, as far as weapon goes, mixers go, I mean, they'll be very powerful in melee, and if you get them in, you're going to win. But because you're going for double melee weapon, it does sort of hand your opponent there the ranged advantage with their Vindicators. So that might actually balance out okay, because if he took the Vindicators and concentrated fire on a dreadnought for a couple of rounds, he could drop it.
Yeah.
So that's not too bad, that. I think it might have been a bit harder for him if he'd stuck a las cannon or a melter cannon, particularly the melter cannon, which is dirt cheap for what it does. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I couldn't bring myself to load a dreadnought with a shooty weapon when they're World Eaters. My love of the lore overwrites my sensibility in playing the game, so for me, that whole idea of the World Eater would just be like, you know what, I don't want a gun. Give me the 2 melee weapons, I'm going to run forward and I'm going to hit something.
I've got to respect your commitment to the theme there. That's bang on. And you will get them in games if you play them well, and you will be taking names with those 2 power claws.
Oh, yeah.
And if you ever get to a point where you feel that he absolutely needs to shoot, you could always drop a Havoc launcher on the carapace.
That is true, actually. Yes, I have left those open, and I still have the bits, so I could just magnetize those maybe, or
that'd be quite good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they're absolute pop guns against Marines, but you know, it might just be kind of amusing. It's like, now I'm going to find my Havoc launcher, and you'll do it for game after game, and nothing will happen, and then you'll get the one game when you fire it, and you take out something critical, and it'll be like, that is the World Eater Sniper Dreadnought with a Havoc launcher.
And that's when my opponent rage quits and we have to find another game to play.
Oh, yeah. So, well, your fallback position there is you put one of the Dreadnoughts away for a few weeks.
Yeah. And I bring out my 2 Storm Eagles to provide air cav air support.
Not sure you're going the right way here.
I never said I was going to be, this isn't Queensberry rules here, So, if we're going to have some heresy fisticuffs, I'm going to be doing it properly. So there will be the spoilers inside both of those, and it will be air cav, Yeah,
fair enough. Cool. So I guess that sets the scene a bit for what we know about this coming year. And that nicely segues us into thinking about what might be coming.
Yeah.
And what we think about this.
Yeah.
And I suppose that when we talked about this before, we thought there were sort of like 3, not that we're necessarily going to discuss all of these, but there was sort of like there's 3 ways that you could look at this as a list of things to come. One was, what do we want, i.e. the players? That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is by thinking about what the game needs.
Mm-hmm.
So units aren't out yet, like all the Space Marine infantry. And then there's a third part of this, which is what will Games Workshop actually do? And the 3 of those things, it's like a Venn diagram, and there's overlapping bits, but there's also bits that are separate from one another.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we've prepared a little list, haven't we? Which we've diced up according to sort of, roughly speaking, organisation within an army. So we've got like the elites and the leaders. We've then got Legion-specific ideas. We've then got infantry. And then we've got some thoughts on flyers and vehicles.
Yep.
So I think through the magic of video editing, I'll put some of these on screen and we'll start going through them.
Excellent.
So let's start at the top with the HQs. So consoles and characters.
Yeah. Now, this has already partially been spoiled for us because we know that technically, while the Apothecaries are not a HQ, we already got the White Scar guy, we got the Alpha Legion console, and we got somebody else, and I can't remember him off the top of my... Oh, the Thousand Sons.
Yeah, Thousand Sons.
We got the Thousand Sons. And it makes you think... Even though we had, as we said, we designed this list several weeks ago before half of these had been announced, we were thinking about the consoles that were missing. So just off the top of my head, there was the Wordbearer's Diabolist, there was the Space Wolf unique console, and obviously the Primus Medicae. Yeah.
So on that, so the Diabolist is Legion specific, isn't it? That's Wordbearers.
Yeah.
What's the Space Wolf? Is it Stormseer? Or is that...
I think it was a Stormseer, but there was a special name for it, and you know what? For the life of me, I can't remember, but I am going to get it.
Was it Stormcaller?
No, I think that's Najal Stormcaller you're thinking of. Bear with me a moment. I have the book right in front of me. I will get the name for this unique console.
Excellent.
And we'll see if we can... Oh, there's the two type of consoles. One of them is the Speaker of the Dead, and the other one is the Caster of Runes.
Oh,
there's actually a third. One's called a Pack Theme.
Flipping out. So this is like the Space Wolf special section, isn't it? So what was that? Speaker of the Dead?
There's a Legion Consular Speaker of the Dead.
Yeah.
There is the Legion Consular Caster of the Runes. And then there's the Legion Consular Pack Theme.
This is like the cast of the university from Discworld, isn't it? You know, Speaker of the Dead, Caster of Recent Runes.
Yeah.
What was that last one again?
The Pack Theme.
The Pack
Almost,
thing.
yeah. That sounds like something akin to like a junior veteran sergeant.
That's a Bursa.
Yeah.
So,
are you implying then if we're going to use Discworld mythology, does that mean that the Thousand Sons are the orangutan that looks after the library?
I'm not saying anything, but all I'm saying is that orange is closest to red.
That's true.
Well, let's do the Legion specific, as we've sort of waded into this throng of Space Wolf characters.
Yeah.
So it's 3 there for the Wolves. I wonder if they'll be so bold as to do a whole one for each, or perhaps do a kit that you could reconfigure slightly. I don't know. But
that's an interesting way of thinking about it. Yeah, would they have something unique?
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, though, given that they've started to pick upon some of these Legion-specific consoles. And like you said, there's a Diabolist for the Wordbearers.
Yeah.
Which I think will probably be quite popular.
There's the Paladin for the Dark Angels as well.
Which one's that? Is that a bit like those Terminators they've got? Or is it something different?
No, I think it's just a generic upgrade. In the book, it says that the Paladin can be given to any Legion Centurion and Tartaros, or Cataphracti. And if he's upgraded to the Paladin of the word that sounds remotely Greek that I don't really want to try and pronounce. But if you want, you can flash it up on screen with the movie magic that we're using here.
I will put the Greco word on screen.
It must just be someone maybe of the... I'm not familiar with the Heresy variant of the Dark Angels and their elite hexagrammaton be some sort of inner circle guy or something like that.
The Dark Angels hexamacguffin, they're just... Who knows what they might do with that. Yeah, I guess everyone's got one, hasn't they? Because for the Iron Legions, the Iron Warriors have got the Warsmith, haven't they?
Yeah, and the Iron Hands have the Iron Father.
Yeah.
We know that the Castellan was the term used for the console of the Imperial Fists, and we've already technically seen one of those in Evander Garrus.
Yeah,
was it Castellan, or was that just I'm wondering, was that a special rule for him, or was that just a title?
It was part of his title, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Castellan something or another, Evander Garrus, yeah. Very nice model, that.
Don't own one in the flesh, but it did look quite nice.
It is, yeah. It's a good model. I've seen some good conversions on it, both as... I'm sure I've seen a Great Space Wolf one, but I have a feeling someone might have done a Sons of Horus one as well, because of, the cloak.
Yeah.
The cloak, yeah. But good. So all these, I guess, are up for grabs now as potential models to do.
Yeah, which is kind of cool, because it's nice to have something Legion-specific,
Yeah, they are very fluffy, aren't they? The only sort of tempering there is that There's still, is it 4 or is it 5 legions who haven't had their Praetor models released yet?
Oh, God, let's think about that.
Iron
yeah.
Warriors, Iron Hands, Raven
World Eaters.
Guard, World Eaters, and the
Arm Warriors.
Salamanders, yes, that's the 5.
No, Arm Warriors, 6.
Oh, I said that. No, I said that start. I'll do it again. Iron Warriors 1, Iron Hands 2, World Eaters, Raven Guard, Salamanders 5.
Right.
So 13 of the legions have got them now, but there's still 5 without. So as much as I like these legion-specific ones, I would like them to get the legion-specific Praetors rounded out, because that project's been going since 2016 now. So there is that. There's also, though, there's non-legion-specific consoles, aren't there?
Yeah, the Primus Medicae, Company Champ. Well, I suppose we already have the Company Champion, don't we? We've got a Traitor and the Loyal variant.
We do, yeah, we do. And there's the other one still in stock as well, the Emperor's Champion, as part of the set with the Master of Signals.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a Chaplain.
Yeah.
And
so there's the Forge Lord, technically.
Yes, Forge Lord. Yeah.
Herald, if you want to be. Although you could use the command squad that we're getting, couldn't you, to sort of kit bash him? But if you wanted to be precise, you could also say the Herald.
Yeah, I mean, with the Herald, I think they would end up doing a Loyalist and a Traitor one.
We already have these, but I would love to see them updated. A Master of Signals and a Moritat. They would be nice in the newer style with maybe a Mark IV or a Mark V armor put in,
Yeah.
Though we do have them. They exist.
They exist, yeah. I mean, Master of Signals comes with the Emperor's Champion, doesn't it? Yeah, I could see them doing that model. I think at the moment it's quite a popular choice in armies, which is because it's a bit broken at the moment. It's underpointed quite significantly. But let's not get into that now. But yeah, they could. But before they do that, so there's a Chaplain, which we don't have a model for yet.
Yeah.
Primus Medicae, as you said.
Yeah.
Now we're getting the standard apothecaries. It'd be good to get the Primus as well. Now with that, would they do... Gosh, they might end up doing 3. So they might end up doing 1 in Powered Armour or Artificer Armour. And then 1 in Cataphractii and 1 in Tartaros Armour. I don't know how they'll tackle that. Or just do 1 in Terminator Armour. And then finally, the Tech Marine. So I haven't had any Tech Marines in the new Heresy game.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we'll do Tech Marines. Tech Marines are a bit weird in the army list at the moment, I think. They don't really work how they were intended at the moment. They wrote them in the army list like the apothecaries, and you have to attach them to Marine squads.
Yeah.
So, okay, that allows them to use things like the Cognis, Signum, and scanners and stuff. But one of the purposes of Tech Marines was to have Battlesmith, that you could then use them to support vehicles and repair vehicles and robots. So they don't really fill that role properly at the moment. So it'd be nice to have a Tech Marine model, but it'd be nice for them to fix the army list on that. They're a bit odd how they work at the moment.
Yeah. I suppose we also need a generic version of the I cannot remember the term. What's the term for the consul that is the guy who is outside the cupola that we've got for the Sons of Horus and the Imperial Fists?
Oh, those are the Loctaris. I know what you mean. There's like the tank commander, isn't there? I can't remember his name.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got, obviously, they're Legion specific, but we don't have one that's just generic.
That's true,
So technically we would need one of those as well.
There are, yes, and there's 2 variants of that character, which I think they'll probably deal with one model.
Yeah, just change the arms.
So loads and loads of character possibilities there, and it's difficult to pick ones here as to what they might release, because they've been releasing so many of late, haven't they?
Yeah. What we would need to do is sort of look at it over the past, say, 2 to 3 months and calculate sort of analytics-wise how many they would release. Because, we'll say, for example, they release 2 a month. They could get through quite a few there, because they have been dumping them thick and fast here for the past, 3 months? Whereas we had a bit of a drought there for the longest time. And now it's back to almost like it was many, many years ago when we were in the middle of Heresy 1.0. And we were getting new things every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Which is honestly the way I like it.
Yeah, no, it's nice, isn't it? Well,
there's always something to look forward to.
It is, yeah. It's difficult to know. They've definitely shown some appetite for tackling the general consoles, haven't they? I wonder if they'll do the Chaplain and the Forge Lord next. When you think about their role in the game, I mean, the Chaplain is a very good characters, very straightforward to use, attach them to like an assault squad or an elite melee unit, and they're really good for benefits. So quite a popular choice. And then the Forge Lord as well for access to robots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hard to know, but I guess that'll be my pick of those. And then of the Legion-specific ones, I'd say there's a fair chance of getting the Diabolist. And, I mean, given their preponderance to go for things that are yellow, then I'd have thought the Castellan might be quite a likely choice as well. So doing a lot of Imperial Fist and Sons of Horus stuff, aren't they?
Yeah. I will go with the Primus Medicae and the Warsmith. Okay, the Arm Warriors still need to come out. Now, here's an interesting theory that's actually just came to me. What if the Legion specific consoles are the way they're going to get around doing certain Praetors? I know that sounds weird, but imagine they release let me think of somebody who hasn't had one yet. Imagine they release a Terminator armored Iron Warrior guy. And everybody thinks it's a Praetor. He looks like a Praetor. You can take him as a Praetor. But in his bio or in the little bit they write him, it just says Warsmith.
Yeah.
So he's a bit of you can use him for both. And that maybe saves them from having to release 3 miniatures. Because technically it should be a Power Armored variant, a Terminator Armor variant, and then the Legion specific variant. They might just say merge 2 into 1.
Well, yeah, Forge Lord, I suppose, is one there, isn't there?
Yeah.
If it did a Forge Lord, that model may well work as a Warsmith and an Iron Father equally well. So they could kill 3 birds with 1 stone, if I can say it right. So characters.
Mm-hmm.
Right, let's move on now to Infantry, which is the real
this
heart.
is the meat and the potatoes.
The heart of the Legion army. So looking back on this year, so there were 2 big releases, weren't they? There was the Mark III Tactical Squad, and then just a few weeks ago, the Mark VI Assault Squad.
Yeah.
So fantastic. It's good to see the infantry options moving forward, both in terms of getting an assault squad and also getting another armor mark.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things here, isn't there? So we made a list of the squads we don't yet have, which I'm going to try quickly run through now. So there was Breachers, Reconnaissance, Seeker, Scout, and Outriders. So those are all units there's no model for at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, you could put a tiny little star next to Seeker Squad for the Sons of Horus, and we'll come back to that. But then the other thing would be another armor update.
I personally think that's what's going to happen. I think that, now it's just a prediction, but G-Dub does like to repeat itself when it comes to certain ways they do things. Speaking as someone who has dealt with them in the past, if anybody has seen my YouTube channel, they'll see that I used to work for them. And they do tend to copy a lot of the ways they do things. You know, for example, when Heresy came out, it was a pure Forge baby. Then it turned into a hybrid game, and now it's still a more hybrid, but it's more plastic than resin. And we can see the old world is going the exact same way.
Yeah.
All the characters are going to be resin from Forge, but most of it's going to be plastic. So for me, I think they'll copy the same year map we had, except we'll change a few things out. The armor update will either be one of 2 things. It'll either be Mark IV, or, if we're really lucky, Terminator armor. Cataphracti upscaled.
Ooh.
I personally think now, there's nothing wrong with the Cataphracti and the Tartaros we have, but I personally think it needs to be taller. And looking at Evander Garrus, he's definitely taller.
Yes.
Than I haven't had these models in the flesh, but you might have had Leaky. See the Sons of Horus, Terminator, Praetor, and Evander. Evander's taller, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah, I've seen a size comparison between Evander and I think it was, right, let me dredge my memory. Right, it was a size comparison between a Cataphracti, Evander, and one of the Indomitus Terminators from Leviathan.
Yeah.
That was released this year. And Evander Garros was definitely bigger than the current plastic Terminators, but he wasn't quite as big as the Indomitus Terminator, so he's sort of a bit in between. So a bit like the new Mark VIs. They're not as tall as Primaris Marines, but they're a little bit taller than the original, Badab / Heresy range.
Yeah, and then that makes a bit of sense, because the sort of upscaled Indomitus from the lower point of view is to take into account that these guys squeeze Primaris into them now.
Yeah.
Now, granted, technically Cataphracti is meant to be one of the biggest Terminator plates there is. So whether or not they increase the scale to match Indomitus to say that these guys are essentially walking bricks and they're absolutely massive, I don't know. But it would be nice to see a small armor update on the Cataphractii, because Evander's well, yes, it is artifice armor, let's be honest. But there's small variations in the Cataphractii plate that does make you look at it and go, just like we did when we saw the Mark III.
Exactly, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Evander Garros is to Cataphractii armor what Fafnir Ran was to Mark III armor, yeah.
Exactly.
It's a refreshed design that's also optimized for the new plastic range. And yeah, if you look at Garros, you can see that there's some little sort of changes with how they've adapted his armor. It's very consistent now with the look of Mark III, like the banded armor plating on the legs. Yeah, that's a good shout, that is. Could we get a refreshed Terminator armor? I suppose when you think about it, when did the previous Terminator kit come out? That was with Calth, wasn't it? So that was 2015?
Calth came out, Cataphractii came out with Calth and the Mark IVs, and Tartaros came out with Prospero and the Mark IIIs.
So it's 2015 and 2016, respectively, I believe.
Yeah. So they're old enough. And if we're lucky, and maybe we don't get Terminator armor this year, but if we're lucky to get Mark IV armor update, then by default, the only two outstanding armor marks that are older is the Terminator armor.
Yeah. So there's a couple of ideas there, isn't there? The first was an update on Terminator armor, which I think they could do. And given we've had a look at what I believe is, or what we both think is going to be a future Cataphractii design in the form of Garius, or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
That's coming. So first year, Mark VI Tactical Squad. This year, Mark III Tactical Squad. What is going to be the power armor squad of this year? So you think Mark IV?
Yes, I personally think Mark IV. I think that they might do all the armor updates before we see 2 and 5. As much as that is kind of annoying, because I would love to see 2 and 5, I think they'll refresh the range before adding new stuff to it.
Yeah, I think Mark IV would be a logical choice to do next. Yeah. It will kind of move another one of the old sets out of the range, won't it?
Yeah.
And that would, I suppose at that point, they could then, well, they'll have to make a ruthless decision about the Mark Vs as to whether or not to keep all those resin weapon sets in production for them, because that's all they'll be doing at that point.
Well, if they know the Mark Vs are coming, if we're lucky enough to get the Mark Vs, they could be the teaser. If they start going sold out online, then that could be the small little wrinkle that says the Mark V's coming.
Yeah, I mean, there's a thought, isn't it, that we've had a look at the Medic, the Apothecary Mark V armor, thinking about this from a point of view of what GW wants to do, yeah. If they did Mark V and Mark IV, they'll need to do both, but if they did those, then they'd have no reason to have all those resin upgrade heavy weapons in production, would they?
Oh, and that would free up a lot of time. Yeah. That's an interesting shout. What if in 2024 we got an armor update and a new mark, but we treated it, if we copy the format that we have literally just seen, right?
Yeah.
And we change armor update to be Mark IV, and we change the word Assault Marine to be Mark V, and they only release 2 infantry kits a year. One's the armor update and one's a new gen of armor. Because obviously this year, we mentioned breacher squads, and we'll probably talk about those in a few moments. But if we imagine that instead of the Assault Marines in 24, we get the Mark Vs, and the breachers turn out to be an upgrade sprue, then all that's left is the 2s.
Well, indeed.
Yeah, the oldest mark.
The oldest mark. That's an interesting thought, that, yeah.
That would be quite cool.
Yeah. I would, on a sort of personal level, I'd really like it if they did a new Mark V kit, because I think it'll get a lot of love, because it's as a range, sort of the thing in the universe. It's never had many models. And I think a lot of people like it just because of the way it looks. And, it's got a different sort of look. And the fact it is, inverted commas, Heresy armor.
Yeah, it is my personal favourite. Production Mark V, as you would call it, the one with all the bonding studs, is actually my favourite set of armor out of all of them.
That's your very favourite, is it?
Yeah. I don't know what it is about it. It's like you say, I don't know whether it's the amount of bonding studs, the ramshackle nature, the semi-Sauron looking helmet, but I really like that suit, I think, for near on 20 years. Since I saw a little line drawing in one of the early Index Astartes books. You know?
Yeah, no, it does. It's always had a distinct look for it. And yeah, like you say, it is supposed to feel a little bit ramshackle compared to the others, which are all much cleaner, smoother designs. I mean, even Mark II, which has that feeling of being a bit antiquated,
Yeah.
it's still cleaner and neater than Mark V, which has got something of the Heath Robinson about it. I have a feeling, yeah, it's interesting now, because a few weeks ago, before we saw the Apothecary Mark V, we reviewed that it's going to be Mark IV because there's been that many character models now where we've had a sneak peek of new Mark IV. That's going to be the armour update. I think I'd still go with Mark IV as being the armour update, but outside chance of Mark V. And I think with what we've said, I think we may see 5 before we see 2 now.
Yeah, which is kind of a shame, but I'll go with that. I'll go out on a bit of a limb, and I will say that if we use percentages, I would say 80% to 90% we're going to see Mark IV as an armor update in 24. And I'll go for roughly 40 to 45% that the Mark V will be the, quote, second infantry kit.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
If we're copying the format now, they might blow that format out of the water and give us an infantry kit every 4 months, every quarter, and we get 4 this year because they decide to get them out because the fans are ready to burn down Warhammer World because they didn't get any infantry.
Yeah.
But if they copy their format because they maybe it's a safe model, then that's that. Because I'm personally thinking if we use the model that we have pre-existing, see everywhere on that. If you have it up on screen, for example, anywhere on that year chart where it says the word New Knights, if you change that towards being auxiliary, then the Solar Aux are the Knights of 24, because they'll need a lot more kits than what we're going to get in the Mystery Army sets.
Yeah, that's true.
So they become the Knights,
It might be a bit more like the first year of releases.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, a bit more like 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So that then leaves us with the head scratcher around will they do Breacher Squad? That seems to me to be the one that's the obvious one that's outstanding.
Mm-hmm. Especially for Zones Mortalis, yeah.
Yeah, well, Zone Mortalis. I don't know how many people actually take breaches in armies. I don't often see them in armies.
See, though, is that because they don't want to spend the money on the resin, or is it because they don't think they're good? See, it could be, for example, I quite like the concept of breachers. I would make a World Eater breacher like 1,000-point force, like the guys who defended the Conqueror. But I don't really want to go forge heavy, so I'm waiting for plastics. You see what I mean? So I would take them if they existed, but I won't touch them because they don't. So if that's the concept of what people are thinking, that could be the reason why you're not seeing them.
Yeah, true. They're not cheap. They're nice models, the resin breaches, but they're also a bit fiddly as well. I think I've got 10 in my stash I've never built. What I did buy and invest some more and have used in games are the Medusan Immortals, which are the Iron Hands Legion-specific breaches. Those are really good. Yeah, I wonder if they'll do a Breacher Squad. And if they do it, how are they going to do it? Will they make a new set of, like a new sprue like they did with the Assault Squad? Or will it be to tack on to the Tactical Squad? The thing with the Tactical Squad is, I don't know if the poses look right for the breaches.
Yeah.
I don't think they do.
See, while I would agree there, I personally think it might be a tack on. The idea of them just tacking it on to the Mark IIIs by having the same 5-man sprue and then a separate sprue that contains maybe the 5 shields, the 5 arms, the 5 bolt gun arms that obviously have the bolt gun with a single hand and not the pre-molded hand on the stock, and then maybe a couple of different helmets. Because the breachers obviously have sort of the ones without the visor grills. They're more heavily armored. But that being said, you are right. There's 2 of the walking poses for the... Although that being said, the Medusan Immortal poses weren't all very hunkered down. There was a guy, if I remember, in the Medusan Immortals who was sort of striding forward. He looks like he's about to bash somebody with the shield,
Yeah, there was. But when you look at the Breacher Squad, they look a bit... They do have very specific torsos.
Yeah.
See, that's something that you never see people moaning about. The original Breacher Marines, those which were sort of the torso and the legs were moulded together, and Destroyers, which were all like that. Oh, no, nobody ever complains about that. Anyway. Not that I'm poking inconsistency holes in certain complaints, which are made by a very small number of people. Most people, I think. I don't know. Part of me says, yeah, they'll do the breaches because they need to. But at the same time, I don't know. Yeah, it's a tricky one, that, whether or not. It feels like a logical one to do. But
Yeah.
I think in popularity terms, I could just as easily imagine them doing the recon squad or a seeker squad or even
Really?
a proper, or even a scout squad.
Okay. To be honest with you, I honestly, but the problem is personal interpretation. I honestly would say that the breachers, compared to the recon, the seekers, or the scouts, I would say that people would enjoy those more than any of those other three. Recon marines are quite nice, but seekers are okay. They're nasty too. But something about the breachers, I think that when it comes to recon, seeker, and scout, they should be just upgrade sprues. Let's be honest, they don't really need, apart from maybe the reconnaissance marines who need a special molded cape or something like that to go over their armor. The other ones are just glorified upgrade sprues. The breachers, if not an upgrade sprue, do need a full scale kit. But then the argument with that becomes what kit?
Yeah,
Do you get a Mark 6 variant or a Mark 3 variant or a Mark 2 variant? Which is one of the reasons why I think it might be an upgrade sprue, because just like they did with the heavy weapons and the special weapons and the, if we're going to get them in the new year, melee weapons, it's just going to be, here's a sprue, you can take it for anybody.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's that, like I said, it's that modular system, isn't it? It would make most sense to, from a simplicity of, and like this is what does Games Workshop want to do?
Yeah.
It would make a lot of sense to have a breacher sprue fit the tactical sprues, but I don't know. Maybe they could do them. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe you're right there. That's most likely, I think. Recon squad, I think recon squads are a lot more desirable in this version of Heresy. I think if they were in plastic, a lot more people would take them.
Mm-hmm.
Seekers are a bit more, you don't see them as often.
Yeah.
As we saw with now, this is where we get to talk about the Armory of the Sons of Horus, which came out a couple of months back, didn't it?
Yeah.
That included a load of Bane Strike bolters and what looked like combi bolters, which, to my eyes, they looked a lot like the bolt guns that they'd done for Seeker Marines before. And I'm certainly going to make a Seeker squad for my Sons of Horus using those parts. So perhaps that'll be the approach they'll take with those, given that Seekers are a bit more of a niche thing.
Yeah.
And they can also then combine it with Legion-specific melee weapons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I could see them doing that. They could just do a Seeker upgrade set that does a full 10 men.
Yeah. That's actually a good shout about those. I just realised, that Sons of Horus Armory concept. We haven't heard hide nor hair of that for any other Legion. And if they're going to do that, that would be quite good for something Forged to do. Because imagine a updated version of the Templar Brethren or the Kadere weapons.
Yeah.
For the World Eaters or the Nostraman Chain Glaives, the Death Shroud, Scythes. That would be awesome.
It would, yeah. I think that will work for some legions better than others.
Mm-hmm.
And they could even take that concept of the Armory of the Sons of Horus and they could turn it into like a general sort of Seekers and something else. Or maybe just a Seekers kit.
Yeah.
You can design it so you use the arms for the plastic model. So all you need is a bolter. So you can do 10 men in a single set. So it's reasonably affordable. Obviously, with the Sons of Horus, it gets diluted a bit because they put the Carsoran power weapons in.
Yeah.
Which are nice. So I
beautiful.
I think it's a good set. I like the Sons of Horus one. Scouts are an interesting one, aren't they? Because we've never had 30k Scout models.
I personally, this is good. You may consider this a controversial opinion, but I honestly don't think they should be there. That to me just seemed like a way to get rid of the pre-existing plastic Scout models they had at headquarters before they released the Primaris version, because obviously there's no such thing as a generic Scout anymore. All the Scouts in 40k are Primarisized, because that's how all Scouts get inducted in now. They all get their Primaris version. So there's no such thing now as a generic Scout. Now, that being said, Scouts did exist in Heresy. Like, if you look at some of the Sabretooth card game artwork, you'd see a lot of World Eaters running about in Scout-esque armor. But that sort of fell out of favor from the time of the Sabretooth game to what we would consider Heresy 1.0. They sort of disappeared into the background to the idea that, they went from initiate to young Marine. But if they're going to bring this, if they're bringing the Scouts back, fair enough, but then they need a proper kit rather than just the hand-me-downs of 40k.
You can't pass them off any other way. I guess the thing with the scouts is they are quite niche in Marine units in game. I think they're probably really something that you'll see perhaps the Alpha Legion using and the Raven Guard.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of legions I think people just lean into their strengths, which either tend to be hardcore melee units, the likes of the World Eaters, the Blood Angels, and the Sons of Horus, or ranged powerhouses. So, talk about the Iron Warriors, the Death Guard, Imperial Fists, the more shooting orientated ones.
Yeah.
And even then, lots of legions have use for like standard melee and heavy weapon squads. Scouts are
definite outlier.
They are. The moment that the Silicon Valley product for the Space Marine Legion, it's a solution looking for a problem.
Mm-hmm. Now, so that being said, if they drop first, that's going to be annoying.
Well, then we'll just have to make a video where it's like, how did we get this wrong? And everyone can laugh at us nicely in the comments. Okay, and then the final one on the infantry was the Outriders. So this is an interesting one because we did get the curveball last year of the Sky Hunters, didn't we?
Yeah.
They actually didn't they release shortly before Christmas last year, or was it? If I remember rightly, you couldn't get them for love or money, could you?
Yeah, no, they disappeared. They were so sought after by a lot of players, either for squads or, in the case of the White Scars, for 90% of your army, and they disappeared for like 4 months. If you remember when Workshop just opened up that new warehouse, and everything went wrong with everything was on back order.
Yeah.
And that affected Heresy tanks as well. Do you remember it was like the Outriders went out, the Rhino disappeared, and it was just
it did.
There was ages where just things were missing.
Yeah. So if they follow the same sort of pattern, will they do the Outriders as a kit? I don't know. Interesting on this because I suppose Outriders, there's quite a few legions which can get good use out of them.
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's sort of a plastic resin hybrid kit, isn't it, from Forge World?
Yeah.
So they're still pretty expensive if you're going to build a force of them.
Mm-hmm.
But these are a bit like the Recon Squad. Probably not quite as bad, but they are.
Oh yeah, definitely an outlier.
They are an outlier. It's it's a bit of a specialised unit. You don't see a lot of people taking them. So
that's actually quite a good. Just thinking back to the way you said that. So if we take this, if we're trying to create a correlation here in the pattern, right?
Yeah.
Year 1, we had the Mark 6, and we had a specialist unit that contained infantry, the bikes, right? Year 2, we've just had an armor update and the assault squad.
Yeah.
2 units in 2 years that have involved infantry. The theory might be sound then. The next year we'll get the Mark 4 and something else.
And something else, yeah.
That has to include an infantry model on its person, whether it be a breacher, a Mark 5, reconnaissance seeker, or something like that requires a unique sprue or, mold.
Yeah, and it could be any one of these options we've discussed, really. No, we've discussed which more likely ones are, haven't we? Wouldn't it be cool if it did the Mark 4s and a new Cataphractic kit?
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Cool, yeah. I'd like to see what they would do with the new Cataphractic kit. The only thing they've got there, though, the only little thing with that, which may be holding them back, is this huge range of Legion-specific Terminators. They might be a little bit reluctant to release a new Terminator and be worried about people thinking, oh, now my Legion-specific stuff looks tiny.
Yes, but they could just, you could just take a generic Cataphracti and put the Legion-specific arms on it.
Or you could do what I do with my Justarian and put little plastic uplifts under their feet.
Yeah. Now, that being said, what would stop them from doing an upgrade sprue for that? Now, let's take it as an example. We're assuming that the Tartaros or Cataphracti upgrade would be a single-piece miniature where the torso and the legs are one piece. They're not. If we copy the idea of what they have now, where the torso and the legs are separate, they're real multi-part and not multi-part in name only, they could release upscaled Legion torsos. Those mixed with the arms of some of the specific kits would basically create what we're missing.
Yeah.
Now, it would be very expensive,
it would,
but Forge doesn't care about that.
Look at the concept of Dreadnought upgrades.
Prime. Oh, there you go. Perfect. No, you're right. You're 100% right. Prime example.
Those yeah.
Yeah, imagine you just change that to 5 Tartarosi torso or 5 Cataphracti torsos.
I think that might well sell better than the Contemptor upgrades. those Contemptor upgrades are overpriced. It's absurd. Did you notice what's the command tank? The Damocles, isn't it?
Yeah.
The upgrade set they did for that, they released it and out for it, and then they slashed the price on it. They cut
37.
the price.
37 it was for that bloody upgrade set. And I quite like that tank, but not in a million years. I'm crazy, but I'm not insane.
I know, it's like, you're seriously saying I'm going to spend more on the upgrade than the actual tank?
Yeah.
And then, what's the new price? Is it £18 or £19? Which is, it feels more reasonable, but the Contemptors are still too much at 25. They should be like 15 or 18. 25 is too much.
Yeah, the Damocles Command Rhino is 18, but obviously you just get the 4 resin components, and then the Rhino itself is 30 quid. I mean, here's a prime example. If they had have charged 37 for the Rhino and the resin pieces, you're saving a few quid. You're not saving a lot, but if you add those two together, that's 48. If you were selling the Rhino and the resin for 37, you're saving a few quid. But they weren't. They were selling the resin components at a crazy amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was crazy, that was.
And it's a very niche tank. Like, I quite like the concept of the tank. Now, world leaders would never use them unless Angron's going to pick it up to hit somebody with. That's a niche tank. You wouldn't put that in a lot of lists.
No, you wouldn't, no. Right, talking of tanks, let's move on to flyers and vehicles. Let's do the flyers first. So, flyers. I think there's 3 flyers, one of which is not the Thunderhawk. I think a plastic Thunderhawk for Heresy is some way off yet.
Oh, yeah.
But I think if the game's successful, it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think is on the cards is a plastic Storm Eagle and or a Fire Raptor.
That would be awesome. And it's a dual kit, let's be honest. You know, they might treat it the way they did the Cerastus, where it's 3 individual kits with just the same body sprue, but different arms, for lack of a better term. But, you know, the only difference between the Fire Raptor and the Storm Eagle is if it's not the missile pods at the back, it's those little things at the side that look like something out of the Republic gunship from Star Wars.
There are some differences in the hull and the fuselage, but there is definitely parts commonality there. Because, I mean, those 2 models are based off the, what's the name of the 40k flyer?
Storm Raven,
thank you.
Yeah.
But I would love to see those as this year's big plastic release because people like them.
Oh, yeah.
But most people are rightly put off by the absolutely terrifying to build 4-jaw kits.
Very much so.
You know, the Storm Eagle is definitely sanity challenging, and the Fire Raptor, well, not as bad, it is still difficult. And they could bring those in a plastic kit, which will put more into the game. It will work nicely because they've released the Doradios first. Yeah. So people have got the anti-air capability in their armies, and it's accessible. So we won't have a repeat of the nonsense that was Warhammer 40,000 5th edition, when all the flyers turned up, and the only anti-air options people had was another flyer or a quad gun from a defence line, which is stupid. The game is in a good place in terms of what's already out to release those. I would pick, both of those as being a Cerastus equivalent release for the summer.
I would agree. And I personally think that might have a slight alteration. You were saying there that there's obviously a small tweak in the fuselage or a small tweak here, there, and everywhere. Every plastic kit they've done, there's been a small alteration from what the resin equivalent would have been.
That's it?
You know?
I'm not sure.
I could have swore that there were small changes. That's how we were able to... I would say there would be, because that's how people were able to pick apart the Spartan when it first came out. When we saw the leaked picture of the Spartan back in the day for 1.0, for the beginning of 2.0, people were looking at that and going, that's not the resin one. Look at this bit. Look at that bit. That tread's different. That's different.
Oh, well...
Tiny bits. You see what I mean? So there were small tweaks.
That was mainly the crew and the accessories that were different.
Yeah.
The tank is functionally, as far as I can tell, is identical.
Mm-hmm.
It was the fact that they'd put those accessories on. So the Commander in Mark II, there's like a searchlight and something else I just forget now. It's like, well, these parts don't exist. So I think the vehicles have been very faithfully reproduced. And same with the new Knights, the Cerastus Knights, they are exact copies of what came before. But Still, I think they will be able to do a Storm Eagle and Fire Raptor based off, sharing 1 or 2 of 3 or 4 sprues, say.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would work, yeah. It's similar to the Cerastus. I mean, the Cerastus Knights, I've not done this comparison exactly, but I guess they share like a legs and a torso sprue, and then the carapace and the weapons and the head parts are on separate sprues.
I would assume so, given the fact that the poses look relatively identical. It looks like it's a bit like every other Imperial Knight. If you look at the generic Knight when it first came out, it's the same chassis. But when they released the arm variants, all it was, this one has a chain blade, this one has a fist, this one has a big gun, and then just like 5 different heads.
Yeah, and the Cerastus Knights were all like that. There are some subtle differences in armour plating between certain Cerastus. The underskeleton, you could call it, with the exception of the Atropos, you could, in theory, buy a Knight Lancer kit and a Knight Acheron kit and swap those parts over and you would be none the wiser.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so flyers, so that's another prediction there for a big summer one. The Xiphon Interceptor, I think that'll come later.
It would be a cool kit, but it's definitely an outlier. The Xiphon is not as... It doesn't seem, well, personal opinion again, it doesn't have as much function as the Storm Eagle and the Fire Raptor. I see the Storm Eagle and the Fire Raptor to be, if you take it as a dual kit example, you've got your troop transport, you've got your heavy fire support. Merge it into 2 kits, it's as simple as that. Xiphon does one of those roles. It does it very well, but only one.
And the way the Xiphon's written in the new game, it's really an interceptor.
Yeah.
I mean, you can use it as a strafing fighter, yes, but its special rules are really around interdicting enemy flyers that have just entered the table. That's what it's there to do. So, yeah, I wouldn't expect to see a plastic Xiphon next year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So very quickly, shall we just go through what's left of the vehicles? So most of the vehicles are now plastic. So there is still the Proteus Land Speeder, which is in resin. Maybe they'll stay that way. I mean, I think they're a bit like the Outriders and a bit like the Recon Marines. It's a bit of a niche unit.
Yeah. Was that the one that they discontinued and everybody thought was coming and then they just re-released it, but with the plastic sponsons?
That was the Javelin Speeder.
Ah, right. Yeah, we're not seeing that one in a million years. They wouldn't have wasted their time redoing it with the plastic sponson just to bring it out in plastic.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I don't think the Javelin, a new plastic Javelin, is coming anytime soon. I'll probably say there's more chance of getting a plastic Proteus Speeder than the Javelin.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. There's a few Sicaran variants that haven't yet made it to plastic.
Yeah, we've got the Sicaran with the basically the whirlwind on top.
Which is the Arcus.
Yeah.
And then there's the Punisher, which has got the rotary cannon. I was thinking about that. I think that's a bit of an unused tank because this is a quirk of how the game works, But that tank is, I think it's the only battle tank, or one of the few battle tanks that's got a main gun that you can actually use in a reaction as normal, like a reaction fire, so return fire.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's because it's of a weapon strength. So because it's strength 6 or less, it counts as a defensive weapon.
Yeah.
And you are allowed to return fire with defensive weapons on vehicles. So unlike all the other Sicarans, which are strength 7 or higher, the Punisher, you can return fire with its Gatling cannon. So that's pretty cool. So, yeah, so there's that, like you said, there's the Arcus, and there's a third one, which is the Omega. And that is one of the fancy plasma cannons. Yeah, I don't know, 50-50 as to whether or not they do these.
Yeah, I would actually say less than 50-50. I would give it no more than about 40%.
The one interesting one that we'll pick out here, though, is the Sicaran Omega. Yeah. And this is based on an observation from Legion Imperialis, in that the Sicaran Omega, they changed the design of the turret. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the plasma cannons, instead of being upright mounts, they're flat mount. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that is the only vehicle that they've changed the actual design on, which is sort of struck me as being a bit unusual. So I wonder if they'll do a full-size plastic version of it, and if it will have that same turret design as they've now got in Legion's Imperialis. Don't know. I'm not sure if that's a prediction, but it's just an observation. Bit of an oddity, that. Everything else, the design, they've kept the same. Yeah. Just on that one, they've changed it.
Well, that's actually not a bad idea, because one of the things we were about to move on to was the rapier batteries.
Mm.
And that was actually what I was going to say about them with Legions Imperialis. We have seen the newer version of the rapier, what I would call the Mark 6 variant, because it has 2 Mark 6 guys with it.
Yes.
And we saw that in Legions Imperialis. Now, if they have that rendered, it's not that hard to bop it up into true scale. So, a bit like the Sakaran, maybe it's the shape of things to come.
Agreed. That is another thing where the design notably changed between full-size range and
Rapier
Legions Imperialis.
design.
Yeah, so perhaps we might put that with the Sikaran and Omega in a special little group of redesigned vehicles, yeah? Yeah,
It would be cool to see, yeah.
And all those, thinking about as well, all those specialised Sicarans, they didn't change the sponsons on them when they did all the other tanks. When I was on the beg for parts a couple of weeks ago for one of my new projects, which is a pair of Sicaran Omegas, you kindly gave me those sponsons so I could put the Volkites on it,
Yes.
It also says that they've not invested the time in changing the design.
True, yes, because they did it with the Mastodon, they did it with the Javelin, and they did it with like a half a dozen other tanks, didn't they?
They did it Mastodon, Javelin, Arquitors, so I don't think they're changing into plastic anytime soon.
Yeah.
And then all the Fellblade chassis tanks.
Yeah.
So Fellblade, Glaive, and Falchion. Interesting. I think the Rapier batteries is a good shout. And I think a lot of people would take Rapiers in their Marine armies if they didn't cost so darn much.
I really like them.
Yeah.
No joke, right? I actually find them to be a fantastic wee thing, but they're just too expensive pounds-wise. I mean, I bought 6 of them once, and I nearly had to remortgage the house. I love them. See them in Tarantula Sentry turrets.
Yeah.
I think they're brilliant. They're wee annoyances for people because they don't pay attention. Next minute, there's 2 Tarantulas with las cannons, and that's it, or a Rapier with quad heavy bolter.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's like that scene in Saving Private Ryan where the Germans pull out a flak 20mm gun and shred half the paratroopers at the end of the film. Because it just comes out of nowhere and just does a lot of damage.
Yeah, they're quite nice units to game with because they've got a lot of firepower.
Yeah.
So they fulfill a role. It's light field artillery, but they're not as tough as dreadnoughts. So if you want to play a bit, not like hobbling yourself per se, but if you want to play an army that doesn't suffer from contempt to bloat, or contempt to overpowering, the Rapiers are a great alternative to that because, they've got heavy long-range firepower of all sorts. You can have the heavy bolters, you can have the laser destroyers, or you can go funky with the graviton cannons. So I think, they're very flavourable units. They game well. The only thing holding them back at the moment is just models are so expensive, So I'd love to see plastic Rapier batteries. So shall I put that as a prediction? That's a wishful hope for that.
Yeah. That's going to be, to have a little bit of a jest, shall we say, that's going to be my version of what the Horus R podcast do, where for like 2 years in a row we kept saying the Mark II Assault Marines were coming, and they never did. And I think they did that just to spite him. So I'm going to have my 2024 just be every week I'll just say the word Rapier battery.
Go for it.
And if I'm actually right and we still don't get the Mark IIs by the end of 2024, it's just going to be like point and laugh.
I know. I think poor old Singh is onto a bit of a ticket to nowhere with his Mark II predictions at the moment.
Yeah.
Bless
definitely.
Him. We do like the Horus Hour podcast.
Definitely. Yeah,
they're a good crew.
It's a bit like most things Irish people do. We may like the people, but that doesn't stop us from ripping the piss out of them.
I think we've covered just about everything on Melissa. Well, I think we have covered everything on Melissa. We've covered a lot of ground, so wow, let's wrap that up. What we're saying then for predictions, so we're saying Mark IV Tactical Squad.
Yep.
Are we going to say New Terminators, or are we going to say Breacher Squad? Ooh.
I will go for, I'll be the outlier. I'll go for the Terminators. Why not?
Okay, well, I'll say Breacher Squad.
Okay.
And these are in plastic, by the way.
Yeah.
And then I also think what's it called?
The Eagle and the Raptor?
Yes. So for a big summer kit release. So sort of like a reveal. I'll go with those. And then just like those funny little outlier ideas of the Sikaran Omega and the Rapiers.
Definitely. And any of the, what was the 2 I said at the start? The Diabolist and the Primus Medicae are the 2 I think we're going to see from the point of view of a console stroke character mini.
Yes, that's a good shout. I will go with Chaplain and I think there's one of the Space Wolf wizards. I'm going to call them wizards.
Yes, the Thane or the Speaker of the Dead or the Master of the Unseen University.
I know. I quite want them to do all three now, so you could have the staff of the Unseen University group. Yeah, that'd be quite funny.
That's when you find out there's a Thane called Rincewind.
Always been sucked into the warp and not very good, but has like lots of dice of luck.
Yeah, he only learnt one spell, and he learnt it really, really well. And after that, he couldn't do anything else. He's the worst psyker there is.
Cool. Well, I think that wraps up for Legion of Cheese episode number 4.
Yep, and that wraps up 2023 as well.
It does, yeah. Wraps up 2023. Bring on 2024. So once again, Happy New Year, viewers.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Hope you've had a heresy-filled 2023 and looking forward to more of the same in 2024. As always, please do share your thoughts and observations in the comment section. We'll be interested to hear what you say.
And if you've any suggestions for things we missed and maybe any justification as to why you think they may be coming, stick them in the comments. It'll be nice to read and maybe something to debate about at a later point.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we're always looking for and trying to think of new ideas for Legion of Cheese episodes. And we've got a cracker for number 5, but we're not going to tell anyone yet. Cool. And as ever, thanks again for joining me today, Jay.
Not a problem. It's a pleasure.
And goodbye for now.
Bye-bye now.